At this time, I would like to introduce our host, Lisa Cubitt, to start this soil session entitled The Associate Program Expanding the SHP Farmer Network.
And thanks again for the introduction. Like Stacy said, I am Lisa Cubitt. I'm a field manager in the state of Iowa, and I get the joy of working with all of our farmers in eastern Iowa. I started with SHP. It's a little bit over a year ago, so I've had the opportunity to be with the program for an entire cropping season now. I'd say that it takes about a year to get everything figured out going through the whole crop season. So that's a little bit more about me. Also wanted to let you know that I actually grew up on a farm myself. Grew up in north central Iowa on a farm, and my husband and I also farm here in east central Iowa. So not only do I get the opportunity to work with farmers during the day and helping them make management decisions on their operation, but I also get to take some of the things that I get to learn from them and also apply that to our farming operation here. A little bit more, I was actually named the lead of the associate program this last November. So I've gotten the joy to work with this program, developing it for our year 2 pilot this year in 2019, along with some of our other field managers, as well as some of our other industry partners and part of our Science Advisory Council. So had the joy of developing this program, and so I'll share a little bit more about what we've been working on here today. So our focus for today's webinar, we just want to talk about the associate program. So give a brief overview of SHP, why are we doing the associate program, what it entails, the benefits for farmers and also SHP, and how you can get involved, whether you're a farmer or a partner. So a little bit more about SHP. So a little bit of background. I'm sure many of you are familiar with us, but we were started as a transitional 5-year research program. So doing on-farm research on a number of sites and being able to just do that research over 5 years and getting the results back. What we found throughout that 5 years as we developed is that actually we have done the research, but we also work really closely with farmers on outreach, on making sure that we're looking at their data on their farm and not necessarily just as a whole across our whole program. So we've also concentrated on economic data, our management practices, and how each management practice has made changes, and as a whole is looking at environmental sustainability. So especially delivering on our mission, we want to make sure that we're farmer-led, which we have definitely seen throughout the first 5 years. So SHP is unique. We bring together 3 really unique parts of our program. So on-farm engagement is really important, as we are farmer-led. Making sure that our field managers are getting out on the farm, whether we're doing stand counts like we are currently right here in the spring, whether we're looking at yield data with the farmer, whether we're looking at their soil tests. Being on the farm and being engaged is a very important part of the program. Communications and outreach is also important, whether our farmers are sharing their story or we're sharing the story of the program as a whole and some of the data that we're collecting and analyzing. Communications and outreach, we're able to reach not only our farmers, but also other local farmers and other farmers across the region. and of course, data and science. Without the data and science to back up our research, we would have the communications and outreach and on-farm, but the farmers wouldn't be able to tell if their practices were economically sustainable, driving forward their farm practices. So what makes SHP different? SHP is one of the largest on-farm research programs of its kind. There's been a lot of activity in the conservation world, looking at different practices, whether it be cover crops, whether it be different types of tillage, name your practice. But SHP is a little bit different. When we take a look at our sites, they're really large on-farm sites. So we're looking at 8 strips replicated across potentially an 80-acre farm. With that 80-acre farm, having so many replications, it makes for a lot of data points. So we did some looking at how many data points, and just in soil samples alone, we have 64 different soil samples that we're taking across that 80-acre farm. Take that times over 100 sites, and just in soil samples alone, our database starts to get pretty large. Also, our program is driven by farmers for farmers. So we're not necessarily on university ground, on industry ground, but we're working directly with the farmers, working on projects that they want to see done on their farm. So why are we undertaking this, and what does it look like? I'd like to show you guys a little video that talks a little bit more about soil health and why we should focus on it, and also how our farmers can get involved.
Growing food, fuel, and fiber today is a high-tech endeavor. Technologies like GPS make farming incredibly precise, reducing waste and increasing yields. But the next frontier in agriculture will not take place above ground. The next frontier is beneath your feet. Soil. There's a growing movement to enhance the ecosystem of soils on the farm. Healthier soils can provide abundant food, improve air and water quality, and boost farm income. The problem is, degraded soil cannot hold as much fertilizer for the plants, letting it leach off the farm more easily. But farmers can come to the rescue and restore balance to the earth. By changing some practices, farmers hold the power to rebuild organic matter in their soil. This helps the planet by improving crops and removing excess carbon from the atmosphere. Crops take carbon from the air to grow their leaves, stems, and roots. When plants die, the carbon from their roots stays in the soil. This residue becomes organic matter. It then feeds organisms that keep soil healthy. More organic matter in the soil means better soils for farming, healthy crops, and protecting the environment. Why are those organisms like worms, bacteria, and fungi important? They are the workers in a sophisticated economy, feeding plants and creating pathways for water. In return, the organisms need plants and roots year-round to feed them. That makes for a healthy soil system. Soil organic matter is loaded with superpowers. It prevents erosion and compaction by acting as a superglue to keep soil together. To fight flooding and drought, it acts like a sponge, holding rainwater in and gently releasing it to plants. It stores nutrients that plants need and releases them over time, resulting in less leaching and more nutrient-rich soil. And soil organic matter is where helpful bacteria and fungi live, organisms which can increase crop yield potential over time. Farmers have the power to improve their soils, help the earth, and leave their land in better shape for future generations. How can you become a farm superhero? Grow cover crops in winter to boost organic matter and absorb excess nutrients. Reduce plowing or tillage to prevent carbon loss. Join the Soil Health Partnership, which helps farmers find best practices and collects data to demonstrate economic results. After all, even a superhero needs to learn how to fly.
So as you can see, farmers are superheroes. I mean, they have the potential to do awesome things for our soil. So sometimes it's just that hurdle of learning how to work towards new management practices and learn how to put in a cover crop, learn how to minimize their tillage and things like that. That makes it difficult. So that's why SHP is here to help get over some of those hurdles and help the farmers be the superheroes that they can be. So I wanted to share Angela Knuth. She's one of our farmers that joined in 2017 and is part of our partner program. And they wanted to learn on how to make their soils better, to regenerate them and improve their soils through different practices. So they've been a very valuable part of the partnership and have really enjoyed being part of it and learning about their farm and about soil health also. However, farmers can be superheroes, but there's also some things that might hold them back from trying some of these practices. I have a lot of people approach me and say, well, why aren't all farmers planting a cover crop? Well, in a lifetime, a farmer raises 40 crops on average, typically one crop per year for most farmers. In some cases, we might double crop or things like that, but typically a row crop farmer is going to have the opportunity to plant 40 crops in their lifetime. So each individual crop that they plant must count. At the end of the day, farming's a business. So making one small change to their management practices, such as planting a cover crop, it could have intense ramifications if things aren't done right. Also, at the end of the day, making one change may also make dramatic changes to other parts of their operation. So a lot of times farmers are afraid of some of the potential risks that might happen, and when they're already raising a good, healthy, productive crop, that small hurdle of the potential of adding more risk to their system might be what's holding them back from making any changes. So in hopes to help address this and help farmers trend towards some of these practices, give them the opportunity to test out practices on a low risk basis, help them through making decisions of when should I do a certain tillage practice, how can I terminate my cover crop, what types of nutrients should I be applying, the different things that we look at with our trials, having them be part of the SHP and the associate program. Hopefully we can help address some of those issues and reach a few more farmers. So the associate program is a lighter version of our core partner sites. So as I had mentioned before, our partner sites are intensive research projects. The associate program is meant to be a little on the simpler side. So instead of looking at strips across the field, we're instead going to just do a split field trial. We're going to expect a shorter time commitment from the farmers, look at a similar set of trial types, and simplify our soil sampling process. So taking a look at our initial site designs with the partner sites. So as I had mentioned, they're intensive. They're replicated research trials. We have 8 strips across the field. And that farmer has to treat each one of those strips differently. We're also looking at a 5-year program, which is a pretty hefty time commitment when you look at the scheme of 40 years or 40 crops that they're able to plant. We're doing a full Cornell and Haney soil sample test, as well as a full nutrient sample, so a routine sample that you might get from your local agronomist. And the farmer also agrees to be a public figure. So they agree to put on a field day or some sort of event on their farm. They share any information that they learn with their neighbors. We ask them to speak at different events, and really they become a face for SHP, and we'd like them to promote conservation wherever possible. On the other side, looking at the associate sites, this is more of a simplified research design. So I mentioned it's a side-by-side. We'd recommend around 20 acres minimum, up to 80 or 100, whatever the field size may be. That 20 acres minimum is just to make sure that we can really establish that practice of the control versus the treatment on the other side. We've narrowed down the time commitment a little bit. The 2-year program seems much more achievable to a farmer in a lot of cases than a 5-year program. So hopefully lowering that hurdle a little bit. We've also simplified the soil sampling set. So making it simpler, reducing the costs, but also getting a chance to look at some soil health metrics to start that conversation. I'll talk a little bit more specifically about the actual metrics that we're looking at in a little bit here. Also, our farmers that are part of the associate program are encouraged to become a local advocate for conservation practices. So if they can share their findings with their neighbor, maybe talk about, why do I have half of my field that's green versus the other half that I haven't planted a cover crop on. If we can have them also host little local events, whether it's a round table or a field day themselves, we would definitely encourage that also. We don't expect them to be quite as big of a national advocate as our partner sites, but we definitely want them talking about conservation practices and sharing what they learn. So here's another look at our trial layouts. So on the left there, you can see our partner sites. That's our 8 randomized strips. So you'll see 4 of those that'll be our control and 4 that would be a treatment. So for example, 4 of those random strips across the field would be a cover crop, 4 of them would not be. We have another site that I work with that 4 of them are a strip till, looking at strip till versus a conventional tillage system. On the associate site side, we're looking at just doing a half and half. So half of the field would be a cover crop versus half of it is not a cover crop. Especially looking at these 2 pictures, you can see how much of a difference it would be labor-wise for a farmer. For the strips, we have to make sure that we're within those strips, treating each one of those strips based on the treatment or the control that we're looking at, versus the other one where we can just put up some flags across the center of the field. They do their potential application of their control, of their treatment, and they go on with their day. So we're definitely reducing the amount of time that it takes for a farmer to implement this program. Also, the cost is greatly different between these 2 different trials. So typically with a partner site, we're looking at upwards of $30,000 to implement that site, between our farmer time, between our soil samples that we're taking on each one of those strips, and just all of the different elements that go into that site. With the associate site, we're looking at closer to $1,000 or a couple $1,000s for that. So definitely makes it much simpler for us to scale up that from a financial basis also. Here's a look at our different sites across the country. So as you can see, the green ones are our partner sites that we currently have located, and the brown ones are our associate sites. Some of them are current sites, and some of them are just areas that we are currently expanding. As you can see, our footprint for our associate sites is somewhat similar to our partner sites, and that's based on being able to have the resources in that area to support those farmers well, and also our grants and our agreements that we currently have in place for this program. So here's just another more specific look at where our sites will be located. Starting in 2018, we had 25 sites. This year, we've currently got up to 84 sites that we've added, so we'll have over 100 by the end of our pilot year for 2019. So a little bit closer look at our soil sampling metrics. So for 2019, we're piloting some different metrics. The ones that you see here were actually taken a look at by our Science Advisory Council, and they analyzed the different metrics that we were doing with our Cornell and Haney tests, and picked out the most important of those, or the ones that we could potentially see the quickest change within. So for this year, we're taking a look at those. Ward Labs is testing them to see how capable their lab is of returning those quickly and doing them well. So I will take a look at those, and at the end of the year kind of reanalyze and make sure that we're looking at the correct metrics and that we can do them on a low cost basis and quickly with Ward. Also, these samples are both being sent to Ward Labs as well as Cornell University to see how much difference we have between some of the samples that we're doing. In addition to the soil health metrics, we're also doing a routine nutrient sample, just as we are on the partner sites. Since we are taking one sample per treatment, this demonstrates a little bit more on how we achieve that sample. So typically we'll create a point within the field, and then we'll do radial sampling around that point. Getting enough soil to fill about a half-gallon baggie of soil. We go ahead and then mix that soil and send it off to the lab. We do that one for each treatment. I have had quite a bit of pushback on this as far as having one soil sample per treatment, but based on costs and things like that, one sample makes sense to be able to start that conversation with a farmer. Many of the farmers that we work with have not had the exposure to soil health samples in general. In a lot of cases, they are pretty costly, and they've never had them done on their farm. So this is a really good start to be able to have that conversation with a farmer, talk about aggregate stability and organic matter and the many different metrics that we look at and how it has changed over their farm or can change in the future. So taking another look at farmer benefits. So with the farmer, on-farm science is important. Like I mentioned, some of these different practices haven't been tested because farmers don't have a good way of comparing them. With SHP, we give them a scientific platform to compare different management practices and not only how they affect farms as a whole, but on the farmer's specific farm. They get a chance to take a look and touch and feel the difference between the soils in a cover crop versus a no cover crop. They can talk to field managers such as myself and talk about what should I do as far as terminating my cover crop. we can have them visit other farms and talk to other farmers throughout our network. Also, with on-farm science, our soil health sampling is unique to the industry. So in the hopes that we can create this soil sampling regime that is low cost to farmers and can be available to take a look at any of their soil health. As far as networking, farmers get access to all of our other farmers within the network. One of the most important things that I hear when we have large group meetings, or in the past when we've had our soil health summit, or anything like that, is farmers want to talk to farmers. They want to learn from each other and learn from the successes and mistakes that another farmer has had on their farm. So through this program, they have the opportunity to meet other farmers throughout our network, as well as attend other events that we have going on, whether it be a field day, whether it be research meetings, whether it be our summit, or whether it be really any other event that we're associated with. Our farmers get to talk to farmers, which they really enjoy and they really find value in. And data and insights. So the farmer gets specific information for their farm, as well as access to our entire data set. So not only can they take a look at their specific soil samples, but they can compare to others within their state, as well as nationally, to where they rank within certain parameters. A little bit more about the criteria that we would like farmers that are involved to meet. So we'd like them to have a side-by-side, so be able to compare two different practices within a field. Also follow our simple SHP trial protocols. With this program, they will really be pretty simple, but we want to make sure that they can stay within our parameters. Also, we'd like to take soil samples, so we'd like access for that capabilities. Taking a look at yield data. Yield data can just be a snapshot in time of comparing one cash crop to another, but gives us an idea if a cover crop or if our practice is having a big effect on that crop. We definitely want to take a look at that and make sure that we are following the correct steps to make sure that our soil health practice isn't impacting their crop at the end of the day. Basic management data, a background such as knowing a field is corn on corn versus corn on soybeans can make a big difference as far as knowing how that data is being affected. Tillage and basic inputs, really any basic practices that we can get a little bit more background on the data can be helpful in the analysis. Sharing learnings, as I mentioned, if our farmers can share with other local farmers, then we can really amplify our message and really reach even more farmers. And interest to learn. We want farmers to be interested in conservation practices. We want them to be interested in really seeing what kind of differences we can make on their farm and seeing if we can make improvements. Our farmers are so excited about this program. Some of you might be familiar with Elisa McFarland. She's the one in the corner there on the right. She actually used to be our development director, and it has now had the opportunity to return to the farm and farm full-time. She is so excited about being able to test some of these new practices and become part of our network from the farm perspective. Mark Heckman is planning on testing out some new things with nutrients. He's excited to just see what differences he can make. Is one type of nutrient more valuable or as valuable as another? And Ray Kubik, he happens to be my father-in-law, and I have decided to do some cover crop work on our farm. he's never done cover crops in the past. Last year was his first try at it, and now he looks at expanding it to almost a quarter of his acres after doing 10 acres last year. So he's really excited to learn more, and this program has really helped him to do that, and has gotten him excited to expand it to other acres. So what impact does the associate program have on SHP? So the associate program is meant to be a complement to our larger network. It allows us to expand our on-farm research program, touch more acres, add data points from all sorts of more farms, and also expand into new territories in the future. It also allows us to reach more farmers and agronomists. On a simpler basis, we're able to try new practices on more farms. By trying practices, farmers are actually a lot more apt to adopt a practice, and being able to involve their agronomist or work with agronomists also allows us to touch even more farmers through those agronomists. Ultimately, if we can shift the farming culture towards conservation practices and have more farmers trying different practices, we can more likely move the mark towards more soil health practices and increasing conservation on the farm. So looking at our approach for the future. So currently, I showed you guys the map a little bit earlier, and a lot of our associate sites are located somewhere near or somewhat close to a partner site. By placing these associate sites in kind of a hub and spoke model, we have that intensive research that's going on, as well as some lighter touches all around it. This really helps us to expand our network and our diversity within an area. We can increase our farmer engagement by having more interaction and more discussion in an area about this topic, about conservation. Also allows us to look at data from all over a lot of different practices within one small region. So a little bit more about our plan. So last year was the phase 1 of our pilot in 2018. We were able to enroll 25 farmers. We started creating our protocols and really identified that in the future, to expand this program to a much larger scale, we'll need some automation that builds into our program. So for 2019, we're enrolling an additional 75 farmers. We're still keeping it on a smaller scale to make sure that we can have our protocols set correctly. We're taking a look at the technology side of it, potentially building some sort of automation to be able to run our data through, collect data from farmers, enroll farmers, and make it simpler for SHP on the backside so that we can expand this to a much larger group of farmers. For 2020, we look at doing a full launch and a full enrollment and being able to enroll even more farmers. One thing that we did find in our 100 cap for 2019 was that we had way more demand than we ever thought was going to happen. So we have farmers interested not only in the areas that we're concentrating on now that we can't get to, but also in all sorts of other geographies. So in the future, if we can add some automation and make sure that our protocols and our procedures are correct and ready to go, we look at expanding this to many, many more farmers in the future. So how can you get involved? First of all, start by visiting our website. On our website, you can sign up for our newsletter and let us know that you're interested in the associate program and get updates to see what's going on in our program. Feel free to contact your local field manager. All of our contact information is on the website. We'd be glad to talk to you about potential of joining in the future, as well as if you have any questions about any of the practices that we're currently looking at. We can put you in touch with another local farmer, or we'd be glad to answer questions ourselves also. Also attend an SHP event. You can subscribe to our listserv, and we send out updates of all sorts of different things that are going on, whether it be summit, whether it be our field days. Also our field days and different events are listed on our website. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and I will pass it off to Stacy to wrap us up.
Thank you, Lisa. At this time, I would like to introduce Shafali Mehta, our Executive Director, to provide a couple closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Stacy. We have just launched this series, and it's never easy to be one of the first people, and we really appreciate Lisa for her leadership and really helping us to develop the associate program. So I hope that all of you are seeing that we continue to evolve and grow, and this is yet another step in that evolution of SHP. We're really excited, as you can tell, about what we can do with this associate program, and everything comes back to our goal and why SHP exists. The fact that our whole goal is to work hand in hand with partner farmers as they learn and see how they can use various management practices to improve soil health and the longevity of their farms. We want to offer more options for them. So this allows us to essentially present a tiered offering so that we can work with a range of farmers depending on their needs, their current capacity and capabilities, and what they're looking for, as Lisa just spelled out. We will continue to evolve, and part of the associate program that we're very excited about is it really does allow us to bring more farms in. From the folks who've already reached out to us, we see more diversity in everything from geography, the commodities they're growing, even the supply chain affiliations and production areas, to the research questions. And your input matters a lot. It's actually your questions, just like we did in the polls, a lot of the other feedback you give us that helps us in designing the program. We do hear you, and we want you to continue to come to us. So we are open to additional interest. As Lisa pointed out, we have already reached our goal of 75 new farmers for this year, but we recognize that people are interested. So please do reach out if you would like to enroll, or if you know of someone who would like to enroll, as we will take your name, and as availability becomes, as it opens up, we can definitely reach out to all of you and make sure that we keep pulling in new folks, because the goal is to build our network. I'd also like to point out that as part of our ongoing effort to increase what we're sharing with you, making sure that you're receiving this information, we are going to add more webinar series and more blog posts, if you've seen, as well as this monthly listserv we just started. So please do go on, let us know. And there is one note, and there's currently a question on the webinar, and it's important. It has to do with our website. So like everything else, we're upgrading and making it better. Over the next 3 months, we'll actually be taking apart and rebuilding our whole website. So if you're looking for information and it's not there, please reach out directly to us. Our general email address is soilhealth@ncga.com. Alternatively, as Lisa said, you can reach out to any of us individually. But we're doing this to make sure that we have the best and updated information for you on the website. We've had a lot of feedback from many of you to strengthen that area, and so we have taken it to heart and are working on it. But as you know, rebuilding websites also takes a bit of time. So in the next 3 months, we'll continue to move that around, and that's why we're offering the listserv as an alternative for now to share information on our upcoming field days and other events as well. So once again, I just want to thank everyone for continuing to be part of the soil health journey, working with us, giving your questions, giving your feedback. It really helps us to be a lot stronger. So thank you.